We are in the end stage right now for the U.S. dollar. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of top economists who are admitting that the U.S. is out of options. They've run all the plans. They've tried all of the strategies, and they've now failed. More on that part in a second. But first, no one in the corporate media, the legacy media, you can turn on CNBC, you can turn on any of the corporate media. No one is talking about this. And no one mentioned this yesterday really at all. And that is that gold prices hit a brand new all-time high, closing at $2,748 an ounce. All-time high. Why? Why is the corporate media totally silent on this? It's kind of deafening how the silence is right now. It's really bizarre, actually. Why do you think? I mean, I'll ask you guys in the comments, why do you think is the corporate media totally ignoring the death of the U.S. dollar? Why? Just drop me a comment. I want to hear about it. Is it because the corporate media doesn't want to admit the U.S. dollar is in decline, or that it represents a failure of the Biden administration's sanctions against Russia, which they were all pushing for? And they were all championing, oh, we got to sanction Russia, sanction Iran, sanction China, sanction everybody. But sanction Russia specifically, boy, did that really come back to bite us in the ass. So, or is it some other reason? There's also zero legacy media coverage right now of the BRICS Summit in Russia. You could turn on any of the corporate media. No one's mentioning it. You think Lester Holt or David Muir tonight on the 6 o'clock news is going to mention it? No, they're not talking about it at all. Silence. Something is happening right now, and it's wrapping up in the next day in Russia, is the BRICS Summit, the 2-day summit led by Vladimir Putin. Xi Jinping is there. Over 20 different major countries are there right now. On the top agenda item from Putin and China is to get rid of the U.S. dollar. To start settling these transactions to run their countries using their own currencies. And a BRICS currency backed by gold and silver. Chinese leader Xi Jinping urging BRICS to lead urgent international finance reform, he says. He told the conference this is urgent. Not like, hey, let's do this next year. Like, we need to get this done now, China is saying. Why is China dumping U.S. treasuries like a bad date? They're getting out of style right now. They don't want U.S. treasuries. They've been dumping them like crazy.
Now, this is not something world leaders normally do. So when you talk about South America, and they're thinking about making their own currency, much like the euro, and they're saying this is a 5-year type project. Like, it'll take 2 years to research it. It's going to take 2 years to have conferences about it, then another 2 years to implement. That's how the euro took a decade, right? And so he's saying we can do this now, and we should.
Right now. And by the way, they've been researching it. They have all the ducks in a row. They've been acquiring as much gold as they possibly can get their hands on, because this currency, this BRICS currency, will be backed by gold primarily and other commodities like oil, natural gas. Unlike the U.S. dollar, which is backed by nothing. It's backed by debt. We went off the gold standard, of course, in 1971. So it's not backed by anything. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. military and aircraft carriers. That's it. So Putin, just a few moments ago, calling for the alternative international payment system at the BRICS Summit. Again, you won't see this in your corporate media. Turn on Hannity tonight and you're not going to see this. Turn on Alex Wagner and you're not going to see this. This is huge news. Vladimir Putin has opened the expanded BRICS Summit by issuing a call for an alternative international payment system that could prevent the United States using the dollar as a political weapon. But the summit communique indicated that little progress had been made on the alternative payment system. Speaking at the summit in the Russian city of Kazan, Putin said, "The dollar is being used as a weapon. We really see that this is so. I think that this is a big mistake by those who do this." He said that nearly 95% of trade between Russia and China is now conducted in rubles and the yuan. So the group's, most of our audience probably understands what BRICS is doing, but if you're new here, let me know in the comments. Are you new here? Have you never watched our show before? Thank you. We'll welcome you. Just type new. We'd like to welcome you. But let me explain. So BRICS is an economic alliance. It's made up of 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Emerging in a big way. I mean, if you think about the United States as the dollar dominant, so these are emerging in that way. But dozens of other countries have now joined as well, including this year. You have Iran has joined. The United Arab Emirates, home of Dubai, basically the most important city probably in the world right now is Dubai. That they've now joined. They're now part of this alliance. And more countries are joining as we speak. So the group's primary focus is on cooperation in areas like trade, finance, development, of course, to challenge Western-dominated institutions like the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the World Bank. So the IMF and the World Bank, by the way, they use the dollar to basically threaten and control other countries, like we've done in Ukraine. Hey, take out a loan with the World Bank, and you'll be in debt to us for 100 years, and we will control everything that you do in Ukraine.
Well, think of what we've done to Iran, which would be a major motivation to join something like BRICS. Is we said, we don't like you, Iran. We think you have nuclear weapons. We don't really feel the need to prove it. We just think that you do, and we like saying it out loud. So your kids don't get antibiotics. You cannot buy these types of things. You can't buy the infrastructure to build out any kind of progress in your country. You just can't have it. Because we've decided, because we like it. So we literally have decided who lives and dies, who gets surgeries and who doesn't, because they need to buy those supplies on the U.S. dollar. So we use it to kill people. So I can see why they would not want that.
Yeah, like we were in Egypt talk to Egyptians about how their access to medicines under U.S. sanctions, right? And using these sanctions as a cudgel, as a weapon, and using the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank as a weapon.
There's a reason they're called sanctions of mass destruction. And that obviously is very motivating to not be a victim to that if you are any country that's not the United States.
So one of the BRICS long-term goals is to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar and in international trade, allowing countries to use their own currencies instead of the U.S. dollar and creating a BRICS currency that is backed by gold and other commodities, as I mentioned, gold and oil and natural gas. And make no mistake about it, this is exactly why the United States wants to go to war with Russia. It's about U.S. dollar hegemony. That's it. It's about the power of the world's reserve currency. That's it. The U.S. dollar is a major problem, though, for Russia and China right now. Here's Business Insider explaining how they're dealing with the fact that this still has to deal with the U.S. dollar at the conference. Putin's dollar problem is on clear display at the BRICS Summit, starting with the moment guests land at the airport. So Russian President Putin is hosting a major summit with more than 20 world leaders, whom he's trying to convince to ditch the dollar. De-dollarization is one of Putin's priorities because trading in local currencies would mean a heavily sanctioned Russia wouldn't be beholden to Western U.S. dollar-dominated global financial order. But it's not easy to move away from the greenback. The organizers of the conference have advised foreign attendees to bring cash, specifically U.S. dollars and euros, to the event in the Russian city. So Russia, basically, you can read it right on their website if you want. I did. Here's their website. Here's the BRICS website. If you don't believe me or if you think this is like fake propaganda, this is the BRICS own website. And right here in text, it specifically says you cannot withdraw rubles or foreign currency at the ATM if you bring like a MasterCard or Visa from another country. And only cash in U.S. dollars or euros can be freely exchanged for cash in rubles in most banks in Russia. So basically, what they're saying is bring U.S. dollars and then convert them to rubles, and you will be allowed to do that here. So they're still dealing with this sort of thorn in the side. Economics professor Richard Werner says we are at the end stage right now for the U.S. dollar. The U.S. has tried everything else, bombing Iraq when Saddam Hussein wanted to move to settle oil transactions in the euro, bombing Libya when they wanted to do the same thing, move away from the U.S. dollar to settle oil transactions. So we bombed them. So now that BRICS is creating its own trade bloc and ditching the U.S. dollar, the U.S. proxies like Japan and Germany are having to support the collapse of the U.S. dollar using their own economies right now, which are in the toilet, to prop up this U.S. dollar. So if you're sitting there watching this right now, what you must understand is it's all a charade. The U.S. dollar is not strong. It's being propped up by the economies of Germany and Japan and Canada, and this is all about to collapse. Watch.
So the real story is that in this late stage, with this national debt explosion, the debt rising exponentially in the US, we are heading, this is end game sort of stage. We're heading to some kind of, crisis or alternative exit strategies. I'll come to that. But it also means that, in this late stage, essentially, the U.S. is pulling all the stops out, and that means the allies, the vassal states in the U.S. Sphere of influence, particularly Germany, Japan, have to pay for this. So their economies are being cannibalized; they're being demolished. We're witnessing essentially intentional dismantling of what used to be strong and successful economies in Europe, particularly Germany and in Japan. We've seen it for 20 years. While at the same time, the central banks in these countries are taking policies that will bolster the dollar. Why is the yen so weak? Well, this is to make the dollar strong. So the dollar has stayed strong at the expense of Japan in particular and European countries and their artificially weak currencies to give this sort of illusion of some kind of remaining dollar strength. But you see in the gold price.
So he goes on to talk about gold price. Of course, gold hitting a new all-time high. And he thinks it's going to go much, much higher, does Professor Werner. So does Peter Schiff. So many other economists. Bank of America just published, they believe it's going to hit over $3,000 an ounce. So why is that?
Well,
so in other
as
words,
Thomas Massey points out, the reason we can sustain such a high debt, that federal debt, is because we get a portion of all global trade because it's on the U.S. dollar. So if we no longer have that, will we have to deal with that federal debt, which is skyrocketing as we speak?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we just hit a new record of federal interest debt on the federal debt. So just the interest payments alone now are over $1 trillion. Just the interest payments on the $35 trillion in debt. So if you are paying attention for your own family and you're thinking about what can you do to protect yourself? I mean, again, tangible, real assets. We talk about gold, we talk about silver, we talk about real estate on this show. But if your family's future, your 401k or your IRA or your savings account is tied to the US dollar, like you think the US dollar is going to go up and that's going to protect your family for the next 15 years, you need to really have a heart-to-heart with your spouse or something and sit down and really talk about this and look at the data right now around the U.S. dollar and what's about to happen. It's being artificially propped up, and they are lying to you. And this is why the mainstream media is ignoring the story, because it's really bad for the Democrats right now. Someone in the chat just said, it looks like Redacted came back from their trip and they're nice and refreshed and ready to go. And yes, exactly, we are. And, as we all age, we're all dealing with more aches and pains and wrinkles and our hair starts thinning out and all of this stuff. But we found something that we've added to our daily routine. It is Revive Multi-Collagen from BrightCore Nutrition. That's right. Since I started taking this, so I take a scoop of this, their Revive formula, it's their collagen type, just one scoop of this, and I put it inside my protein smoothie after I go to the gym, and it's fantastic. Yes, so just one little scoop of this. It's not even a big scoop, and this is one, you can get the ones that are flavored. This one's unflavored, so I just put it right in with my vanilla whey protein one, and I like it. You can get 20% off right now. Right now, just by going to mybrightcore.com/redacted. Right now for 20% off. It revives 5 types of collagen inside the formula. The hyaluronic acid, biotin, vitamin C. These ingredients work synergistically to create long-lasting effects. Revive helps repair and lubricate your joints, reducing pain, inflammation, also helps maintain strong bones, prevents the onset of osteoporosis. I mean, I'm 47 years old, and I try to stretch, and I try to do those things in the morning before I have to walk the dog and things like that, but get the shoulder pain. So this is why I started taking this, and I'm thrilled that we could have them here as a sponsor as well, because I'm using it now. So anyway, I want you to check it out. Call our friends right now for even better discounts. If you actually call them, you can call their 800 number, 1-888-404-6312 for even greater discounts and free shipping on every order. Or just go to the website, mybrightcore.com/redacted, and use the code redacted for 25% off your entire order. So our thanks to My BrightCore for supporting our show.